Hello everyone, and welcome back to our discussion on Romanticism featuring Wolfgang von Goethe's Faust. Today we're going to dive into the first of the two sections we're going to read in Faust, the Prologue in Heaven. So when we read through this, because we're only looking at two scenes in the context of this major play, it's really important that whenever we see italicized text in your textbook, we need to pay attention to that. So I've gone ahead and, like I will be doing through the remainder of our online learning program, I've gone ahead and placed the italicized text for you for those who do not have the textbook. If you do have the textbook though, it's a good idea to open it up to page 882 where we will begin. So the Prologue in Heaven then is going to introduce one of our main characters, the devil Mephisto. And I want to draw a distinction here. When we talk about him as a devil, we're not talking about Mephisto being Lucifer. We're talking about one of the demons prevalent in hell, Mephisto, otherwise known as Mephistopheles, for those of you who might be familiar with that through shows like Lucifer or Supernatural. So he's going to be one of the main characters we meet. We're also going to be meeting the Lord, as well as the archangels Raphael, Gabriel, and Michael, because the setting for the Prologue in Heaven is, as you guessed it, heaven. So Mephisto is going to appear before the Lord and his archangels and address him directly. So as we begin to read, our initial focus is going to be this. In this verse drama, the devil Mephisto proposes a bet to win Faust's soul. Read to find out what the Lord thinks of the devil's bet. So this is our focus. So we know Mephisto is going to make a bet with the Lord and basically saying, I can win over Faust's soul from you. And the Lord is going to take him up on this bet. But we want to see exactly what he thinks of it and really why he allows it. Additionally, we're going to be focusing on this pause and reflect question, and this is one of the two questions that you'll see in your assignment, that worksheet for this video. Why does the Lord allow Mephisto to strive for Faust's soul? It seems like an odd thing, right? When we think of the Lord, we think of God, we think of protection from things like this. So why does God allow it? For those of you who recall your Bible classes, this is an insanely similar story to what happens in the book of Job, where God allows the devil, this time Satan himself, to tempt Job. So again, if you do have your textbooks, please do read along. It'll be pages 882 to pages 885 of your literature textbook. Without further ado, let's go ahead and begin our reading of Faust. Prologue in Heaven.
Since you, O Lord, have once again drawn near, and ask how we have been and are so genial, and since you used to like to see me here, you see me too as if I were a menial. I cannot speak as nobly as your staff, though by this circle here I shall be spurned. My pathos would be sure to make you laugh, where laughing not a habit you've unlearned. Of suns and worlds I know nothing to say, I only see how men live in dismay. The small God of the world will never change his ways, and is as whimsical as on the first of days. His life might be a bit more fun, had you not given him that spark of heaven's sun. He calls it reason and employs it resolute, to be more brutish than is any brute. He seems to me, if you don't mind, your grace, like a cicada of the long-legged race, that always flies and flying springs, and in the grass the same old ditty sings. If only it were grass he could repose in, there is no trash he will not poke his nose in.
Can you not speak but to abuse? Do you come only to accuse? Does nothing on the earth seem to you right?
No, Lord, I find it still a rather sorry sight. Man moves me to compassion, so wretched is his plight. I have no wish to cause him further woe.
Do you know Faust?
The doctor?
I, my servant.
Lo, he serves you most peculiarly, I think. Not earthly are the poor fool's meat and drink. His spirit's ferment drives him far, and he half knows how foolish is his quest. From heaven he demands the fairest star, and from the earth all joys that he thinks best. And all that's near and all that's far cannot soothe the upheaval in his breast.
Though now he serves me but confusedly, I shall soon lead him where the vapor clears. The gardener knows, however small the tree, that bloom and fruit adorn its later years.
What will you bet? You'll lose him yet to me, if you will graciously connive, that I may lead him carefully.
As long as he may be alive, so long you shall not be prevented. Man errs as long as he will strive.
Be thanked for that. I've never been contented to waste my time upon the dead. I far prefer full cheeks, a youthful curly head. When corpses come, I have just left the house, I feel as does the cat about the mouse.
Enough. I grant that you may try to clasp him, withdraw this spirit from his primal source, and lead him down, if you can grasp him, upon your own abysmal course. And stand abashed when you have to attest. A good man in his darkling aspiration remembers the right road throughout his quest.
Enough! He will soon reach his station. About my bet I have no hesitation, and when I win, concede your stake, and let me triumph with the swelling breast. Dust he shall eat, and that with zest, as my relation does the famous snake.
Appear quite free on that day too. I never hated those who were like you. Of all the spirits that negate, the knavish jester gives me least to do. For man's activity can easily abate. He soon prefers uninterrupted rest. To give him this companion hence seems best, who roils and must as devil help create. But you, God's rightful sons, give voice to all the beauty in which you rejoice. And that which ever works and lives and grows enfolds you with fair bonds that love has wrought, and what in wavering apparition flows that fortify with everlasting thought.
I like to see the old man now and then, and try not to be too uncivil. It's charming in a noble squire when he speaks humanely with the very devil.
So just as we've been doing for our series on Dante, I'm going to analyze with you exactly what you're going to see on your worksheet that will be due in regards to this video. So as you are listening, please fill that out along with me. And we're going to be focusing on two main things here. The dialogue being said in this slide by Mephisto, and the insight that we gain about him. So when we speak and the way that we speak, it reveals, whether we intend it to or not, inner things that are going on inside of us, right? So this is what we're going to be looking at, not just literally what Mephisto is saying, but what is implied by the diction that he chooses and the tone that he gives off. So the first thing we're going to focus on, even before we dive into the dialogue and the insights, is the rhyme scheme that exists. Because remember, when we talked initially about Faust, we said that it's really hard to place this play into a specific genre. Even just classifying it as a play doesn't seem exactly right, because one of the things that we note is that Goethe makes use of verse, of poetry. And so in the beginning, we're going to see this A-B rhyme scheme being given. And this translation does a really good job of showing that to us in the English. So near rhymes with here, and genial rhyming with menial. We're going to see that this, however, shifts partway through what Mephisto is saying, and it's going to shift from an A-B rhyme scheme to an A-A-B rhyme scheme. Say and dismay rhyming, as well as ways and days rhyming. And we're going to see that continues. Fun and sun, resolute, brute, grace, race, springs, sings. And recall from last year, when we did poetry, we talked specifically about any shift or change in pattern, including rhyme scheme, and how the poet does this to draw our attention to that. So we're going to be looking at, in this portion of Mephisto's dialogue, what is he saying? What do I need to focus on? So let's begin then at the top of this slide and see, what is Mephisto saying? And here we notice that he seems to be a little bit of a smooth talker, or at the very least, he understands who he is addressing and the need to be respectful, right? Obviously, we know from the get-go that as a resident of hell, he's not going to be very welcomed in heaven, nor is he going to be buddies with the archangels or the Lord himself. So he's very careful to tread lightly in his speech. So referring to the Lord properly, "O Lord," and even complimenting him. "You are so genial," right? "You are agreeable. You're pleasant." And he also alludes to the former kindness that he received from him. Again, all things that, if we're analyzing his diction carefully, really points out the fact that he is cautious in the way that he speaks. The next thing that we're going to see, and I've gone ahead and color-coded this for you just to make it that much simpler, is that he is a very, very good wordsmith, meaning that he knows how to craft an argument exactly the way that he wants. And here we see that he's playing to the pathos or the emotions of the Lord. Mephisto wants to be pitied, and we need to think, why would he want that? Again, recall where he is. He's not on his own turf. He's in heaven. And so he's trying to paint himself as this weak figure, perhaps to gain sympathy. And he also does that by painting the Lord as this uncaring figure. "My pathos will be sure to make you laugh," right? Meaning my emotion, my heartache would make you laugh, right? Again, trying to twist the way that the Lord is seen. And this continues now. Again, we see example that he's a great orator, meaning that he's amazing in the way that he speaks. Because look at what he does here in trying to convince the audience that he views humanity in a good way. He says, "Men live in dismay," meaning they live in pain. And this small God of the world, referring to humanity, will never change his ways and is as whimsical as on the first of days. So painting humanity not in an evil sense, but just as someone who in his own right thinks that he runs the world and is whimsical, meaning he moves with whatever his emotions tell him to do. He even says life might be a bit more fun had you not given him that spark of heaven's sun. So really saying that I feel bad for man. He probably would have more fun in life if he didn't have that pesky reason to deal with, that spark of heaven's sun. Heaven, again, referencing the Lord, and sun being this source of light. So what could we think of as a righteous light that guides us but our reason, our conscience? But here is where Mephisto begins to reveal the truth. And the truth is this, that he hates humanity. He even goes so far to use a simile to liken man, that's you and I guys, right, to insects. They're like cicadas, and all they do is sing that same old ditty song, right? If you've ever seen cicadas, or even just go on YouTube and Google the sounds they make, they are horrendous, super annoying. Back when I was in high school and they were coming back around, you couldn't sleep at night. That's how loud that they were. And so he's saying that they constantly sing these same old songs. They're so annoying. So you see this huge shift in Mephisto's tone. And the very last thing he says, again, hiking up the similarities to insects and animals a bit, "There's no trash he will not poke his nose in." So Mephisto doesn't view humanity in a good light at all. And this is something we need to pay attention to as we begin to see why he makes the bet for Faust's soul. And even now, we can understand, or at least hypothesize, that it's not for anything good. The next thing we get to see now is the Lord's response. And the first thing we see is that the Lord immediately sees through Mephisto. He doesn't thank him for any of his kind and very flatterous words, and he's not charmed by him at all. In fact, he again uses these rhetorical questions, right? Really, is there anything that you won't make fun of or that you won't bring down Mephisto? Again, pointing to Mephisto's true nature. And this is important because although we're going to see that Mephisto gets his way in this scene, we must never lose sight of the fact that the Lord here is in control. He knows exactly what Mephisto is about. And we need to keep that in mind in thinking about our pause and reflect question, and why would the Lord allow the bet in the first place then? And now we see Mephisto's response. And even though the Lord has seen through him, Mephisto keeps up this pretense, or this mask, if you will. And part of the reason we see that, perhaps, is because he still believes that he can trick him, right? So here he says, I find it still a rather sorry sight. So again, going back to this diction of compassion for humanity. He even says so as much in the next verse. Man moves me to compassion. Completely going against what he's just said, right? But he doesn't address that. He's smart. He moves on. He says, I have no wish to cause him further woe. But we know that we shouldn't believe this, right? Based on his previous speech, he shows zero compassion for humanity. But rather than addressing this, rather than pointing out Mephisto's obvious lies, the Lord says, do you know Faust? So here, one of the things that we learn here in this exchange, one is that Mephisto knows him as well. So in terms of knowledge, he and the Lord, at least where humanity is concerned, share similar levels of intellect. They're aware of humanity, and man in particular. They both know Faust, as well as his profession. But the Lord also says this, I, my servant. So here we understand that at the very minimum, the Lord views Faust as part of his flock. But also, perhaps in reality, this is Faust's position, that he is religious. But we need to think about, why is the Lord bringing up Faust now, right? Maybe, perhaps, he's trying to put Mephisto to the test as well. So, Mephisto, you say that they move you to compassion, that you don't want to cause them further woe. Well, essentially, by bringing up the name of Faust, maybe the Lord is saying, put your money where your mouth is. And Mephisto is going to take this opportunity and run with it. And he begins here. Lo, he serves you most peculiarly, I think, meaning strangely. Not earthly are the poor fool's meat and drink. So here we need to understand he's not talking about this literally. He's saying that what Faust most desires, what he needs to survive, doesn't come from the earth. It comes from a spiritual place, right? His spirit's ferment drives him far, meaning that we already know from now that Faust is a tortured soul. And remember, this makes sense because Faust is going to be that romantic hero. And one of the things we know about romantic heroes is that they are this dark and brooding figure, and Faust is going to fit the bill. We see Mephisto continuing, and again, it should be really eerie for you guys. Mephisto is fully aware of Faust's inner struggles, right? Imagine the things that are deep within us that we struggle with, those secrets that we don't tell anyone. Mephisto has access to them, and this is going to be important in our later scenes and understanding why Faust falls prey to Mephisto in the beginning. And we also see that Faust is driven to torment by his desires. So one of the reasons why he might become so enthralled by Mephisto's offer, why he is going to make the bet that I think it's safe to say you or I would never make, is because of the torment that he has, right? He cannot soothe the upheaval in his breast. Nothing is enough to calm him. And when we're in this place of anxiety and stress and we're pushed to our limits, we're willing to do almost anything, right, to get out of it. And the Lord now is going to jump back in, and here he's going to use this beautiful metaphor of a gardener and their garden. And here we see clearly the way the Lord views humanity, that he's hopeful for them, right? He says as much. I soon shall lead him, meaning Faust, where the vapor clears. So the Lord is claiming from now, even before the bet is made, that he will be able to lead Faust on the right road. Again, recalling Dante, right? This road to righteousness. And we also see the use of elevated speech in this metaphor and in the wisdom that the Lord has, right? The gardener knows, however small the tree, meaning however weak or little, incapable, that bloom and fruit adorn its later years. So even from the beginning, we see hope for Faust. And this is where Mephisto comes in, right? So hopefully we're beginning to see how the Lord is leading him inch by inch to this place. And Mephisto, in a sense, whether we think so or not, and we can argue this fact for sure, it'd be an interesting debate, he takes the breadcrumbs that the Lord is dropping and he initiates this bet. But perhaps this is what the Lord wanted all along, right? A chance to put Mephisto in his place, or to change his humanity, or his view of humanity, right? So here we see that Mephisto is very arrogant. Although he still tries to maintain a hint of respect, he still understands where he is, right? You'll lose him yet to me. So confident, right? And this is the way this needs to come across in your reading, right? We look at Mephisto as this cocky, arrogant figure who thinks he can take on the Lord. But the Lord doesn't rise to the bet in that sense with him. Like, he doesn't meet him with this elevated sense of arrogance. No. He shows his power by being more resigned. And he says this, so long as he may be alive, meaning Faust, so long he shall not be prevented. So we know that it's the Lord who allows the bet. None of this could have taken place without his say-so. And here he says, man errs as long as he will strive. And so here again we see hints that in the end, ultimately, this happy ending that we know Faust has in Goethe's edition is going to be achieved, and that the Lord knows this from the beginning. Now again, we're coming to the unleashed side of Mephisto, in the sense that he doesn't any longer hold up this pretense of caring about humanity. Again, he continues to liken them to animals, even going so far as to say, this is just like a cat and mouse game for me. So he's going to very much enjoy getting to lead Faust down the wrong road. But here is where the Lord comes in and stops it. He exerts his power, showing us, the audience, but also Mephisto, that it's the Lord who is still in control. And additionally here, the Lord begins to show his own sense of confidence, that he knows that Mephisto is going to lose in the end. Perhaps, right, to answer a pause and reflect question, why he is so willing to enter into this bet, because he knows ultimately who will win. But not to be outdone, Mephisto also exerts this sense of power, but it's a mimicking power, right? He's mimicking the speech of the Lord. And again, we see this arrogance, this confidence, this spirit of boasting, that he is going to win Faust's soul, that he has no question about this. And then finally, we get the last set of words from the Lord. And here is where we begin to see that the Lord really takes on a mocking tone in respect to Mephisto, that he really doesn't see him as a scary or fearful figure. Because remember, and this is what he's going to remind Mephisto of too, that he holds all the power, right? He even references that. But you, God's rightful sons, speaking to the archangels, give voice to all the beauty in which you rejoice. Again, referencing the beauty and power of heaven. Another reason why the Lord is not going to be concerned about Mephisto at all. And now we come to Mephisto's soliloquy. Remember, a soliloquy is a speech that a character makes to themselves when they believe or they truly are alone. It reveals their inner thoughts. And here we see just how evil and wicked and beautifully conniving Mephisto is. Because now, instead of referring to the Lord in respect, he refers to him as an old man. And even likening him to a noble squire, a squire meaning someone from the medieval ages who would serve someone higher than them. And so he puts himself, Mephisto does, as higher than the Lord, and higher than really his station is. Because remember, here he's saying that the Lord speaks humanely with the very devil, referring to Mephisto. But we already know Mephisto is not Lucifer himself. So again, we see this arrogance and this grasping for power that defines Mephisto's character. That's it for today's video. Thanks for hanging in with me there. The next ones will be shorter because we're going to need to dive at a more slower pace into the second section of Faust. So the worksheet you have been completing, hopefully during the video, please make sure you finish that. I've posted it on Google Classroom as your assignment. Please make sure you fill it out in its entirety, so the table completely, which is essentially just tracking your notes through the video, and those 2 reflection questions at the bottom. Please do answer those in complete sentences, as many sentences as it takes to get the idea across and to fully complete the question. That worksheet will be due on April 23rd. If you have any questions, you can email me at ka0052@lesvg.com. Thanks guys, have a great afternoon.